The Sumud Flotilla, Mushtaq's Caravan of Conscience. In the bustling, politically charged city of Islamabad lived Mushtaq Ahmed Khan. Mushtaq was a man of deep faith and action, known not only as a successful business leader, but also as a former senator of Pakistan. This unique background gave him both the financial capability and, crucially, the political understanding required for monumental, cross-border projects. His life, like many others, was dominated by work and family, but his evenings were spent absorbing the news. Day after day, the reports from the distant lands of Palestine painted a picture of deep distress. He saw the need for medicine, food, and basic necessities, needs that transcended the political landscape. The scale of suffering felt overwhelming, yet the sight of it galvanized him not into despair, but into action. He realized that writing essays or giving speeches was not enough. The people needed wheat, flour, blankets, and syringes. They needed tangible hope. The problem was not a lack of willingness to help among the people of Pakistan. It was the vast, daunting distance, 1,000 miles of land, followed by 1,000 miles of sea, separating the willing hand from the needing heart. Mushtaq decided he wouldn't send a plane, he would send a caravan. He would mobilize not just aid, but a symbol of solidarity that was impossible to ignore. His mission was to gather enough supplies to fill a small ship, a floating promise of hope, but the first step was the hardest, convincing others to join a journey that was unprecedented and fraught with danger. Mushtaq started small, using his own savings and appealing to his closest friends. Soon, however, his effort became a wildfire of generosity. Pakistanis, moved by his genuine determination, began to donate. Farmers gave sacks of wheat. Doctors contributed boxes of surgical supplies. Families emptied their wardrobes of blankets and warm clothes. The operation soon outgrew Mushtaq's garage. It moved to a large warehouse, becoming a focal point of national sentiment. Volunteers, young and old, streamed in to sort, pack, and label the endless stream of goods. The Caravan of Conscience was born. It was not merely a collection of trucks, it was a movable city of compassion. The initial challenge was logistical. How do you move hundreds of tons of carefully packaged goods from Pakistan, across the difficult terrain of multiple countries, and onto a ship waiting in a foreign port? Mushtaq mapped out the route, overland through the deserts and mountains to a suitable port city, and then loading the entire haul onto a vessel, the flotilla, to complete the final, most sensitive leg of the journey by sea. The convoy finally launched, a line of brightly decorated trucks, flags of Pakistan and Palestine flying side by side, carrying the weight of a nation's hope. Mushtaq was at the head, not driving, but organizing, troubleshooting, and negotiating every single mile. The overland journey was an epic test of endurance. The trucks battled heat that could melt asphalt, the rough roads of border crossings, and the complexity of international logistics. At every stop, small villages, busy cities, and remote checkpoints, the caravan was met with an outpouring of support. People would line the roads, waving flags, offering water, and, sometimes, throwing in their last few items of food to add to the already overflowing trucks. The caravan wasn't just transporting goods, it was stitching together a network of shared human feeling. Mushtaq's primary role was not physical labor, but the mental gymnastics of diplomacy. He had to prove to border guards and port authorities that his cargo was purely humanitarian: food, medicine, shelter, and not political. He carried thick folders of permits and manifests, arguing patiently, day after difficult day, for the right to pass. The caravan finally reached the designated port city. The next phase was the most critical, transforming the land convoy into the Solidarity Flotilla. The aid was meticulously transferred from the dusty trucks into the hold of a leased ship. This was the moment where the journey became truly perilous. Once the ship left port and entered international waters, it became a highly visible, high-stakes political statement, a target. Mushtaq, along with a small, diverse crew of international peace activists, doctors, and volunteers, boarded the ship. The hold was deep, filled with the collective generosity of thousands. The ship itself was a modest freighter, but its purpose made it feel like a warship of peace. The small crew understood the risk. Their vessel, now the Flotilla of Conscience, was sailing directly toward a blockade. They knew their communications might be jammed, their movements tracked, and their passage contested. Mushtaq had prepared his people not with weapons, but with cameras and clear instructions to remain nonviolent. Their mission was to deliver aid, not to fight. Their strength lay in their moral clarity and the international press attention their presence commanded. As they sailed into the zone of highest tension, the silence on the ship was heavy. Every person was glued to their monitor, listening for radio commands or looking out at the endless horizon. This was the true test of their resolve, confronting armed vessels with nothing but bags of flour and bandages. Mushtaq, the quiet man from Islamabad, stood on the bridge. He was not afraid of his destination, but afraid of failing the millions of people who had entrusted him with their offerings. The flotilla met the expected resistance. Days of intense negotiations followed, often conducted over crackling radio lines, demanding that the ship turn back. The crew was exhausted but resolute, following Mushtaq's lead, firm in their objective, yet non-confrontational in their delivery. The specific logistics of the delivery, whether the aid was directly offloaded, transferred to smaller vessels, or rerouted through diplomatic channels, varied based on the political circumstances of the mission. However, the core truth remained. The aid eventually reached those in need, and the mission's visibility forced international attention onto the humanitarian crisis. The journey was a success not just because of the tons of supplies delivered, but because of the precedent it set. It proved that ordinary people, led by determination and compassion, could override colossal geographic and political obstacles. Mushtaq Ahmed Khan returned to Pakistan not as a wealthy man, but as a wealthy soul. He showed the world that a flotilla is not just a group of ships. It can be a swarm of unified human goodwill, powerful enough to cross oceans and break through boundaries. His was the magic of necessary kindness, demonstrating that humanitarian need is the one language that needs no translation. His legacy wasn't just the memory of a long drive and a risky sail, but the proof that a citizen with a clear conscience is more powerful than any blockade. The Caravan of Conscience showed that distance is only a number when the heart is committed to the journey. Please subscribe the channel to get more stories and like the video. Thank you.